Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Mad Knitting. My name is Susan, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm here to talk about the stuff that I make, which is mostly knitting. Today is April the 28th, it is Thursday, the year is 2022, and you can find me on Ravelry, if that is a site that is accessible to you, as madtownmama. You can find me on Instagram as madtown_mama. And I'm not on the Making app very much, but if you're there, you can find me there as madtownmama as well. I have like maybe 4 projects on there, but anyway, today I'm going to share a couple of finished objects, some works in progress, teeny little bit of sewing, and I'll share just a little bit about what I'm reading as well. So let's just jump right in. My first finished object I don't have with me. I actually recorded about a 9-minute video last week before I sent it off, so I'm going to insert it here. I'm here to share about the sweater I just finished. It's called the Jones Cardigan by Tin Can Knits, and it is a birthday present for my dad. I don't know if he watches, so that's why I was being cagey about who the sweater was for when I talked about it in previous episodes. But his birthday is this Saturday, April 23, and whenever this episode is recorded will be after that, so he'll have gotten it and we'll know by then, hopefully, if it fits. Anyway, I'm going to share some details about the sweater before I send it off. So that's why I'm here now. So let me hold it up first so you can see it. It is fairly massive, as you can see. Maybe I'll try it on so we can see how it fits me. My dad is 6'1" and definitely bigger around than I am. So I was going for about a 50-inch circumference on this sweater. I think it ended up a little smaller than that, but it's a cardigan and will probably be unbuttoned when he's wearing it, so we'll see. Anyway, it's huge on me because I'm obviously way shorter than 6'1" and not the size of a full-grown man. But this is what the cardigan looks like. You can see there's a shawl collar that was worked with short rows. It's fairly deep at the top. Construction-wise, you cast on a jillion stitches to go all around the body and work your way up. It's all in one piece up to the armholes. You cast off a few stitches for the armholes and then work the fronts and the back separately up to the shoulders. I believe the pattern calls for you to bind off the shoulders, but and then sew them up, but I did a 3-needle bind off because I find that it's easier than seaming and it's very strong. Structurally it's very strong. So then you pick up the sleeves around the armholes and knit them in the round down to the bottom. And as you can see, these sleeves are very long on me. So I really enjoyed working on this sweater, even though it was obviously a labor of love because it's large and it took a lot of yarn and a lot of time, or a lot of dedicated knitting time over the past 4 weeks or so. But I really enjoyed it, partly because it's for my dad. So it's for somebody who is obviously a big part of my life and very special. And also partly because it was a pretty straightforward pattern and the yarn was nice. It's nice wool yarn, which I'll share about in a second. So not to get too redundant, because I know I've talked about this in previous episodes, but the basic design has panels of moss stitch with cable panels, alternating with cable panels. And the cable is a very easy to memorize repeat. Once I had gone through the chart, one chart repeat, I really didn't need to look at it anymore. I could remember what to do. So that was pretty straightforward. The moss stitch is a little tedious, but it looks really nice. So that was all fine. The collar took quite a while because, I mean, this is so long. Like, you pick up all the stitches around the entire front and back neck and down the other side, and then it's 1 by 1 rib, and there's a lot of short row shaping for this shawl collar at the top. But I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I think the collar took 2 full skeins of yarn just for that, maybe more. The yarn, by the way, is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. Just as I was trying to decide what sweater to make, they had a sale on their entire Wool of the Andes line, so that seemed like a really good time to get some. I actually ordered 20 skeins because I knew I would need a lot. I didn't use all 20. I have 3 full skeins left over plus little bits of a couple more, so I definitely could have gotten away with 17 skeins, possibly 16, but I'm not totally sure about that. These are 50 grams a piece and 110 yards, which is why I had to get so many. And this is the color Cobblestone Heather, which I'm trying to see if it's on the label there. Cobblestone Heather. So I have talked about this in previous episodes, but one of the things, the only real modification that I made to this pattern was that I used a heavier yarn than it called for. The original pattern, which is in this book called Great White North, I had mine spiral bound at Kinko several years ago so that it would lay open easier. The original design, here's one of the pictures, calls for DK weight yarn, which means that to get the size I wanted, I would have had to cast on a lot more stitches with DK weight than I needed to with worsted weight. So I did do a swatch and calculated how many stitches I would need to cast on to get the desired circumference that I wanted based on my swatch. And then I looked in the pattern and picked the size that had the cast on number closest to that. Fortunately, with Tin Can Knits patterns, they have a huge range of sizes. So just about every sweater pattern they make comes in tiny newborn through at least about a 60-inch chest circumference. So as long as you're not on one extreme or the other, and as long as your gauge is not too far off from whatever the original pattern calls for, you can usually get away with picking the number that fits your gauge the best and then going by the measurements for the size that you want. Hopefully that's not too confusing. So that's what I did. The sweater still came out a little smaller than I was expecting, but I don't know. My parents live several states away, and this is a surprise because it's for his birthday, so I won't really know if this fits until he gets it in the mail and can try it on and let me know. What else to say about it? I'm trying to find another picture. Here's another picture. You can see it is being worn by a full-grown adult and a little kid. One thing to note is that in the pattern they recommend very little ease for the adult sizes, which I think is a little odd because it's a drop shoulder construction. So it just feels like it would be kind of tight and bunchy in places. I do not want this to have no ease for my dad. I'm hoping it'll be nice and, fit more like a jacket. But like I said, I won't know until he gets it. I don't know what kind of buttons these are, but I bought them at the Sow's Ear. I actually biked over there a couple weeks ago to see what they had. So they're not anything really, you know, bespoke or anything. I think they're just plastic, but they're the right size, and they're a very nice dark gray with just a little bit of swirl. So I thought it looked really nice with the dark gray heathered yarn that I have here. So I think that is all I have to say about this. It is the Jones cardigan. I really enjoyed knitting it. I could easily see myself knitting another one. I think this would be a really great option for myself. It would be a really nice gift for a new baby, if that is something that, if you had a baby that you wanted to knit for. But yeah, it's done, and I'm gonna send it off, and that's what I have to say. So as you can see, the Jones cardigan was a project for my dad for his birthday. I want to update you on that. So I sent it off. He actually received it the day before his birthday, and I got this long email saying that the package had arrived, that he opened it, that he loves the sweater. Did not say if he had actually tried it on. He just said, "Oh, I love the sweater." Then went on to tell a really long story about how his car had a flat tire and what he had to go through to get that fixed. So the next day on his birthday, we did like a family FaceTime. So I was on, and my brother in Virginia was on with his kids. And I said, "Dad, does the sweater fit?" Well, of course he hadn't tried it on because they live in Kentucky and it's pretty warm there by now, but he agreed to try it on while we were on FaceTime. And I'm happy to report that the sweater fits him really, really well. The only issue is that those sleeves, remember how long they were when I tried it on in the video clip? They're actually pretty long on him too. Even when he folded back the cuff, they were still a little bit too long. So I don't know if I'll have him send it back to me to fix, or if I'll just try to make it down there to visit sometime before it's cold enough for him to wear it, which won't be till, you know, November probably. But since the construction is that the sleeves, I started knitting at the armhole and knit down, it should be pretty simple to just unravel a little bit and just move that ribbed cuff up a little bit up the arm so that it'll fit him better. So I'm really, really happy that it fits. I wasn't, you know, I couldn't try it on him as I went, and I just wasn't sure because I don't have anybody around who's about the same size as my dad to try it on. So happy about that. Oh, the other thing is I always forget to mention needle sizes, just in case that is something you want to know. So as I mentioned, I was using heavier yarn at a little different gauge from the pattern. So I was using that Knit Picks wool, and for the main part of the sweater, I was using a size 7. And then I went down to a size 5 for the ribbing and the collar and everything. So size 7 worsted weight yarn, those are usually a pretty good match for me. My second finished object is the one that I am wearing. This is the Paper Doll sweater by Kate Davies. She's a Scottish designer who's really pretty well known. And yeah, I have mentioned this in several past episodes. So if you've seen those, I'm gonna try not to get too repetitive here, but just to share quickly about the yarn I used and the modifications I made. As you can see, this is a yoke design sweater, so there is color work on the yoke. I'll get a little closer so you can see it. This paper doll design is what drew me to the sweater. I think it is so clever and so cute. This design that looks like when you cut paper dolls out of an accordion style photo paper and then unfold it. I don't think it's too childish, but I think it's very playful. So I just really like it. And this design has been out for years. In fact, the pattern I used came from this book published in 2020 called 10 Years in the Making. And it features several, it has some new designs, but it also features some of her more popular ones, including paper dolls. I'm trying to find it in here. Here we go. That have been re-knit in, I guess, more contemporary colors, and I think she's added to the size range. I'm not sure that this had a very expanded size range when it was first published. So for years I've been wanting to knit this sweater, and I finally did. So I used yarn from Sun Valley Fibers, and I actually remembered the labels. I think I'll just show you one label. But this main color, this sort of dusty teal color, is called Kindred Spirits. Is this focusing? Yes. And the natural color is called Antler. And the mustardy color, which doesn't show up super well against the teal, but I like it anyway, is called Dijon. So I'll show you the yarn caked up. I have quite a lot left over. I have almost a whole skein left over of the Kindred Spirits, and I didn't really use very much of either of these. So I'm not really sure what to do with the leftovers. Yeah, maybe I'll think about that. In terms of how I made this sweater, I did modify the construction because it is knit bottom up, body and then sleeves, and then you attach it at the yoke and knit up this way. I did not want to do that for a couple of reasons that I iterated in previous episodes, but one reason is that I just hate the awkwardness of where you join the body and sleeves. It always pulls at the underarm. It's awkward with all those stitches and needles hanging out, and I just wanted to avoid that. So what I did was cast on provisionally for the yoke only and knit that up. I didn't want to try to convert everything top down, considering the charts, considering I would have had to convert decreases to increases. Also, there's this I-cord bind off here at the neck, and I wasn't really sure how to do that from the top down. So anyway, I just cast on provisionally, did the yoke, and then picked up the stitches to go down. So the other reason I did that was because, as you saw in the picture, the original design just has cap sleeves. I think you just do ribbing and that's it. Well, I wanted more coverage than that. I'm over 40. I like my elbows covered, and I had plenty of yarn, obviously, and I just thought I would like the style better with more of a sleeve. And I hadn't decided exactly how long to make them, but the advantage to doing the sleeves last was that I could put off that decision until the rest of it was done and I could see how it feels. So I ended up just making them a little bit below my elbow, which is working out really nicely because the sweater it's fingering weight yarn. It's superwash, so it's not as warm as non-superwash would be. Non-superwash wool, the fibers stick together more and trap the air, so it's warmer, and superwash has been treated to be smooth so that you can wash it in the machine, which I think also makes it so it's not as warm. So that's because it's such thin yarn and because it's superwash, I thought that it would be pretty comfortable for cool days that aren't too cold to have sleeves that don't come all the way down. And I've been wearing it all morning, and so far I'm pretty happy with that. What else to say? The yarn am not sure how I feel about this yarn, to be honest. I really, really love how this sweater came out, the finished object. I love the look of it. I love the color combination, even though the contrast isn't great between these two. When you put them next to each other in color work, I think they're, I forget the terminology, but like the value or whatever means that you don't see a big contrast, but I'm okay with that. But it's just, it wasn't necessarily as pleasurable to knit with as I thought it was going to be. I'm not a huge fan of superwash, and I think that was part of it. Also, it just isn't as like, I don't know, it was kind of ropey. So when I think about what I'm going to do with the leftovers, for example, I'm not sure how well I would like this in socks, because I think it might just kind of stretch out and get baggy and not necessarily have that nice tight spring that you want in a pair of socks. And the other thing is, while I was initially drawn to the yarn because it was tweed, the tweedy parts, some of them are like these huge chunks that kind of get in the way and weren't spun in the yarn very well. And in fact, I think there's a spot, like, yeah, right here. You can see on the yoke some of the places where there are just like these huge chunks of the stuff that they make the tweed nips out of, and it just isn't incorporated very well in the yarn. Like, here's another, no, it's not on to focus, but you can kind of see just in the skein how some of those are just like really big chunks. So, well, I have nearly a full skein of each of the colors left. I'm not exactly sure. It might be enough to make like a striped or color block t-shirt at a little bit looser gauge. It definitely would be enough for a 3-color shawl if I was in the mood for that. Although I'm not sure if a tweedy shawl is something I would go for. So anyway, I'm still thinking about that, but that is what I have to say about this yarn and about the paper dolls design. So those are my 2 finished objects. So now I'm going to talk about some works in progress. I have quite a few things going, or I have several things going, and it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of how well they're going. I finished a couple of big things recently. I finished the sweater and the sweater for my dad, and I'm a little bit at odds about what to knit next. I have some gift knitting coming up, so that's what I've been thinking about. I'm also kind of casting around trying to figure out what next larger thing that I would like to work on, perhaps for myself. And it's just been a little hard to feel settled on anything. But yesterday I was really eager to get something new started because I had like 6 hours on Zoom for work. There was a online thing we were hosting, and then I had like 5 solid hours of training, and I have that again today. So I am feeling very anxious to kind of have something ready to go. So even though I have socks on the needle, sometimes that gets a little bit tedious. And yesterday I decided to start something new and also get going on a gift project for somebody who is expecting a baby boy in a few weeks. So I think first I'll just show you the sock that I have in progress because I've made some progress since last time. These Barbie splatter socks, which is what I'm calling them. I finished the first one, except for hiding the ends. And it is like very pink and very splattery. I saw yesterday that there is a Barbie movie coming out in 2023. And I have no idea what that's going to be about or what that's going to be like, but it'll be interesting to see. I actually did find my label for this yarn. It is Happy Feet Splash by Plymouth. And I don't think this wants to focus. Anyway, that is what the yarn is. And I am pretty far along on the second sock. I am on I think I have a couple more gusset decreases to go before I do the foot. So the foot will be done in no time once I pick this up, which might be today during that training. By the way, this yarn is a little bit thicker, I find, than normal sock yarn. So I'm using a size 1.5 needle. Usually I use a size 1 and I cast on 60 stitches. Usually I cast on 64. So that's another reason these are going so quick once I pick them up. Anyway, yesterday I wasn't in the mood to knit a sock during this training. I wanted to knit something else. So I was looking around before my Zoom marathon and trying to decide on a gift pattern for this baby and trying to find something that would work with yarn I have in my stash because I have so much stash. And I ended up choosing a pattern I had in my library. It's called Peanut and it's by Tin Can Knits. Here's one of the pictures. Here's a picture on a couple of adorable little kids. This, by the way, is from a book called Max and Bodhi's Wardrobe. And it's got several adorable patterns, including, if you will forgive my little segue here, where is it? There are these little, these little jogger pants called Rocky. I made a pair of these once for when my cousin had a baby. Totally adorable, really fun pattern. Anyway, the Peanut Vest is one of the few patterns that Tin Can Knits has that is not sized through adult. I think it only goes through about a toddler size 4. Anyway, I thought it would be adorable for a little baby boy. So I chose the 1 year size. Since the baby's due in a few weeks, probably a vest wouldn't be very practical until next fall. And this is what I did yesterday. I almost got the thing done. The color work is really fun. It's got a V-neck. And I was going gangbusters. I got the entire main body done during this training. And last night I was watching TV with my daughter and I got the rest of this neck done and I just picked up the stitches and did this whole part. And after I was done, I thought, this neck does not seem big enough to go over a baby's head. I haven't measured it, but it just seems small. And I don't know if you can see because the yarn is dark, but the V comes down to here. It just doesn't seem right proportionally. So, screeching halt. I'm not exactly sure what to do now. I think maybe I should pick up more. I should probably pull out this ribbing along the neckline. Probably I should pick up more stitches, one for every row instead of 4 for every 5 rows or whatever they tell you. And I should definitely do a looser bind off. So I think I can make this work, but I'm a little disappointed because it was going so fast and now I'm kind of questioning as to whether it's going to work. The other hesitation I have with this, now the color work is really fun, but like I was mentioning with this sweater and how I just don't always love superwash yarn, I'm using superwash yarn for this, and I find color work in superwash yarn just doesn't look very nice all the time. It'll look better after it's blocked, but you can see this lighter contrast color. The stitches just look really big and loose. And I don't like that. I always go up in needle size for color work because I know my gauge will be tighter and it would pull in and look funny. So that's part of it. But because the yarn is treated not to felt, it means that even after blocking, even if the stitches get smoother, they won't really stick to each other and do that lovely blending that non-superwash yarn will do after you block color work. So I'm looking at it and just thinking, am I being too much of a perfectionist, or is this just my gut instinct telling me that maybe this wasn't the best choice after all? No shade to the yarn itself. It is Knit Circus. It's DK weight, 100% superwash, which for baby gifts, I tend to have some of that around. The color, that gray contrast color I'm using, I don't know why I bother to show labels because they never focus. There we go. Silver lining is the color of that gray, and this blue, which I just think is really, really beautiful, is called Marauder's Map, which is an old color. I've had this yarn for a while. I don't think they do any Harry Potter themed colors anymore because J.K. Rowling is a terrible transphobe, and Knit Circus, who is a local company that I love, they have very high standards for values and ethics, and they will not continue to do any Harry Potter themed things while the author is such a terrible person and so harmful to the trans community. So I support that. Anyway, I love this blue color, but I was having so many second thoughts, questionings, and doubts about that rather than rip anything out right away, I thought, well, I have a lot left. I have this much left of one skein after knitting that little vest. I had an entire second skein, and then of course the silver color, I hardly used any of that because there wasn't very much required for the color work. So rather than fix what I had my doubts about and had kind of screwed up, I thought maybe I'll just start something new. So I spent some time looking at patterns, and I ended up purchasing, there's not a picture with my printed out pattern, but I think it's called Tak. It's by Gabrielle Dansknit, and I will just show you like the title so I don't give away any of the pattern itself. Tak. She has tons and tons of really lovely baby and children's patterns. In fact, this one, I'll make sure I've inserted a image of from the pattern page. This is just a basic top-down hooded cardigan pattern. She has it available in about 4 different gauges, including like a heavier weight gauge that I use to knit that pullover for my niece back in the fall. If you've been watching since the beginning, you would have seen that. I'll put a picture of that in here too. But, you know, I just needed a win after the vest from yesterday. So I got that pattern because this is DK yarn, and this morning I always wake up early and knit for a while before doing anything else with my day. And I cast on, and I'm, you know, what, 2 inches into the yoke or so. So my plan is to make it mostly blue, and I will do some striping with the gray down the body. And one modification I am making is that the pattern calls for knitting a garter edge down the fronts. So you're doing the button band as you go, which makes the finishing really, really easy. I don't like doing that with stripes. I think it'll look a little messy when changing colors. So I have eliminated that from the main body, and when it's all done, I will pick up stitches and knit all the way around, knit on the button band and buttonhole band after the rest of it is done. So that's an easy modification to make. It just meant that I cast on fewer stitches for those, and I'll have to pick that up and do it later. And if it turns out that I'm a little short on yardage, I don't think it'll be a problem according to the pattern, but if I am, I can always just rip out the vest because I'm just not sure if I like it. So those are 2 works in progress. Speaking of failed things, I started this, I think in my last episode I showed you this cotton yarn that I bought intending to make the Juliette sweater for my niece. Pictures here are crap, so I'm gonna throw one in for you to see a better one. And this one just is not going well either. I started it, got a little ways in, realized that this is another one where you do the button bands as you go, and got a little ways down and realized I had just totally ignored the part of the instructions that say do the button band. So I had to rip back a little bit. And then I was going, realized that I messed up the chart. I just totally misread one of the symbols in the chart. So had to rip back again. And this is as far as I got last week before setting it down. And I don't even have like a full heart done here. It doesn't look great. You can kind of see the heart, I guess. It doesn't look super neat. I think another mistake that I realized I made was that there are some yarn overs that you have to do after a purl stitch, and I was not paying attention, and there's a different way to do yarn overs after a purl stitch than after a knit stitch. It has to do with which way your yarn goes over the needle. And I wasn't paying attention to that. And it does matter. It looks different depending on how you do it. So I saw that and I thought, I don't want to have to rip this out yet again. Plus it's cotton yarn, which is not the most comfortable to knit with. Plus this color is not what I envisioned when I ordered it. I thought it would be just a little bit brighter. I like the color. It just isn't as vibrant as I was hoping for my little niece. And so I set it down, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I've been hopping from project to project, especially after finishing these larger ones, because I just kind of can't settle. This happens to me every so often, especially after I finish big stuff. I'm neurotypical. I don't have ADD or anything like that, but I really need something in my hands all the time. I am used to working with my hands. Having desk jobs for the last couple of years and being in school before that was a real adjustment for me, because I'm used to being more active and using my hands more, and the only way I can sit through meetings or sit through class is just to have knitting. So that's one of the reasons that I feel like I'm fairly prolific, especially these days. That is one of the reasons, is that it's hard for me to not have something going all the time. So, yeah. So I'm a little at odds with what to do about that. Anyway. Well, I think that is all I have to say about knitting today, though, because if I keep going, I'll just be babbling incoherently. But I do have one sewing project to share. I was the recipient of a giveaway in the Yarniacs podcast group on Ravelry. There was a thread about at the end of last year, and it had to do with finishing works in progress. So if you entered anything in there, if you mentioned whether you had actually finished something or ripped it out because you had given up on it, all those names were thrown into a virtual hat, and I was one of the ones picked. I forgot that I had even posted anything there. But the prize I chose was actually a set of 5-inch squares of quilting cotton, and they arrived a few weeks ago, and I decided that that I would make project bags out of them because there's not enough fabric for like a whole quilt. I just wasn't sure what to do with them until I got the bright idea of making really simple patchwork project bags. So I've made one, and I want to show it to you. There it is. The fabrics coordinate, as you can see. There's sort of a teacup theme going on there, and I used some of the same ones for the other side. This particular color scheme is these teals and gold, and I don't know if you can see, but the gold is actually like shiny gold on the fabric. But there were several other prints and colorways, many of which were like fiber arts knitting themed. So I'll just show you a few. I won't show you all of them, but whoops. There's one print here that shows balls of yarn. There were several colors of this knit stitch themed, stockinette stitch themed fabric. And there were a couple different iterations of this, like little animals, but I think that word there says handmade, the one under the chicken. This has a lot of different stuff going on, but you can see there's a crochet hook and a sock and a little pair of scissors. So all very cute, and I think what I'll do is make several project bags and keep them around for giving gifts or using them myself. But I just wanted to share that. Last thing I wanted to talk about quick was that I have been reading. In my last episode, I mentioned that I was about to start reading the book Violetta by Isabel Allende. And I am about 2/3 of the way through. It's very good. It just came out this year, and it begins in the year 1920, when the pandemic of that time, the Spanish influenza, had hit South America particularly hard. So the title character in the book is born in the worst of that time, and it chronicles her life journey over many decades, starting from when she was born. And I think this is the first book I've read by this author that is written in the first person. So it's kind of interesting to me that she tells it basically from one person's point of view, and you don't get quite the same mosaic experience of many, many characters like in her other books. So I like it a lot. I'm really enjoying it. I think maybe I've enjoyed some of her other books just a little bit more because you get a little bit more of those perspectives, but it's fascinating. Just like with her other books, you learn a lot about some political history of the time. You learn a lot about how social thinking worked in that part of the world at that time and how that evolved. There are themes of, there's a character who's gay. There's very antiquated ideas about marriage and annulment, and it's just really, really good. So I recommend it, and I hope to finish it soon because it's already a couple of days overdue at the library. I may have mentioned that I am not always good about turning library books in when they are due, so I need to finish it and give it back. Well, that is all I have to say for today. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.